We have a special guest joining us, though, in the studio, which is unusual. Usually our interviews are by phone, so we're so pleased to have him here. Be Good Dog Behavior Modification. He is the owner of Be Good Dog Behavior Modification. He's joining us here in the studio. Hi.
How you doing?
And we're so pleased to have you. You know, I think you and I were talking a little bit off air about, I had got an email about you and how wonderful you are. And this is such an important topic. And a lot of times here on Second Opinion, we don't talk about companion animals as much. So I'm so pleased that tonight we can talk about pit bulls. That is your specialty. You've been living with and working with dogs for more than 15 years. And during that time, you've had the opportunity to work with several different breeds, and your specialty is fear, anxiety to severe aggression and rehabilitating, but you're a wonderful dog trainer. You have a wonderful reputation. You're also an advocate for the animals in shelters. You work with a lot of shelter animals. And an advocate of spay, neuter, and against dog fighting. But, you know, tonight I wanted to talk, Be Good, about pit bulls in particular. That's something that you're very familiar with.
Absolutely.
And because a lot of people have misconceptions about this breed. We see it on the news all the time. People are always talking about it. So first, tell us a little bit about why you got involved in this and what brought you to this, your passion. And then we'll talk about the breed and how you work with these animals.
Okay. Well, you know, one of the things you see and you hear all the time about pit bulls are how mean they are and how aggressive they are and things like that. But the bottom line is they're no more aggressive than any other dogs, you know, when they're properly socialized and they've had the proper, you know, exercise and things that all dogs need, you know. They are prone to be more aggressive to animals if they're not socialized, yes. But, you know, when you see the news and you see these guys focus on some, you know, some dogs that might have attacked people and things like that, those are exceptions. Those are dogs that, you know, usually are 9 times out of 10 aren't spayed and neutered. They've been on the chain all their life, not getting mentally stimulated, and then they get frustrated, you know. But the breed itself, I mean, if you go to any of the temperament websites that, you know, are credible, they always rank amongst the highest, you know, among the highest of all the breeds, you know, usually top 5 as far as temperament and things like that. And they're actually not people aggressive by nature. You know, at the turn of the century, they were America's dog, you know, and they were great with kids.
Yeah, and I do want to give out your website also while we're thinking about it. It is halfmanhalfpit.com. One of the things you say on your website is that, which I think people would find shocking, is that they're, you know, like you said, their temperament is so good. I mean, they're ranked with, I think they're calmer or whatever than beagles or or labs, and they're right up in with those. And so, you know, we've heard before there are no bad dogs, just bad owners.
Absolutely.
So what are your feelings on that?
I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with that. At the end of the day, you know, if you give your dog, like I said, the proper exercise, stimulation, and things like that, your dog will be fine. You know, whether it's a beagle or whatever it is. I mean, I deal with all breeds, and you know, I've never been bitten by a pit bull. I've been bitten by Jack Russell, Shepherds, all kind of stuff. Not to say anything bad about those breeds, but they had issues that didn't get addressed. And with any dog, you know, just some basic training would help. You know, as far as with the whole portrayal of pit bulls, you know, a lot of people just see dogs on the news and they haven't even, you know, had experience with them personally. And, you know, that's what we want to change. We want you as the owner to, you know, be out there and be responsible so people see this and see what a great dog they are. I mean, I got a 3-month-old son, and, you know, I'll have my pits in the back, and if he's in the house and starts crying, you know, they'll come running up to the gate to kind of see what's wrong, you know, and that's their instinct.
Yeah, and you actually you've worked with the Atlanta Dog Whisperer, you know, you've worked with all these rescue groups. You really have an insight into the dog's psyche. You really understand their emotional state. Is that something you help people with when they come
Absolutely.
to you?
That's one of the things a lot of my clients appreciate the most is I don't just come there and work with your dog and then that's it. You know, I try to help the people understand dog behavior a lot better by showing you how to read some of that body language, and it's not just something you can use with your dog, but it helps you with your interaction with any dog you come in contact with, whether it's a stray in the neighborhood, whether it's one of your friends, you might go, to their house with your dog. Just some of the signs to watch for and things like that to try to help educate a little more.
And the thing is, I believe, and maybe you can talk about this, but dogs, there's a reason why they're called our best friend, although we're not really good friends to them. We'll talk about that later. But they truly want to please us. Is that true of the pit bull breed as well?
Absolutely. And pit bull, they're one of the breeds that are the most in tune with people a lot of times. They seek our approval, they seek our interaction, and that's why it's sad, because a lot of times when I see pit bulls that people are turning over and things like that, it's actually not aggression. It's actually not. It's just they're so happy to see you that they're just like full of energy. They're like a ball of excitement, and those type of things just take minor behavior, just minor things that we could work with to kind of help that out, and that's one of the things. Like I said, they aim to please, and that's kind of how their history, why they've been taken advantage of, because they're so eager to please their owners.
Really, and we need to do our part in understanding them. We sometimes I think we as humans, we expect all the other animals to understand us and what we want, but it takes an extra effort, and it's probably just a learning process, so you're able to teach people that as well.
Absolutely. And it's not, one of the biggest things that I see with people is that we humanize dogs, in the sense of, we love them just like people, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But they don't think like people. So you got to kind of understand how a dog thinks to just be effective as far as getting your message across to him. We can't just tell them, hey, I don't want you to, go on my kitchen table. We have to show them. And that's a big deal,
One of the things that we have actually talked about on the show, but it seems to really cause a lot of behavioral problems, is when people don't think of their dogs as part of their family or their clan, and they stick them in a backyard and they chain them up. And then they're so surprised when they get all these terrible behaviors. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, that's one of the worst things you can do. I mean, just think about it in terms of a person. I mean, if I just took you, say, for example, say you were a football player, and I say that because pit bulls are very athletic. They need to burn energy off every day. They need to work it out. So it's just, imagine taking a football player and telling him he got to stay in the library for the rest of his life. He can't go work out. He can't go do anything. Before long, he'll get frustrated. He needs to do those things. And it's the same thing with pit bulls and any other dog. When you take them and you put them on a chain, they don't get stimulated. It builds up frustration. It's like every day you're putting on another coat, but not taking off the coat you had on yesterday. So before long, you just have layers on top of layers, and fortunately we're able to work through a lot of that. But we got to start being responsible for our animals. Giving them what they need. Treating them like family.
One thing, particularly, I have to say this. Particularly, men have a problem with sometimes is spay and neuter. They feel like, oh gosh, if I neuter my dog. But talk about how important that is. And you've actually been in the shelters. You've seen these dogs on death row. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually what kind of changed me. Originally was the first time I visited the animal control, DeKalb County Animal Services, and saw how many dogs were getting put down, how many dogs were back there. And, spaying and neutering is so important in so many ways, because, I'm not against breeding. Okay, in the sense of, if you're maintaining the integrity of the breed and things like that, that's fine. We wouldn't have the breeds we have today if it wasn't for breeding. But we really don't need any more pit bulls right now. They're putting them down by the thousands every day in this nation. So the spay and neutering is because we're not responsible. It's not to punish them. It's because we as people aren't responsible.
Right.
And it's to help make up for that. And when your dog isn't spayed or neutered, I mean, a male dog could smell a female dog and heat probably a mile or so away. And that adds to the frustration too, when they can't go satisfy that. They're on a chain, and that's how you get some of these dogs breaking out of the yard and just running, going crazy. So, as a man, I understand, I do a lot of outreach in the community, and I hear that all the time, like, I'm not chopping them all, stuff off, whatever. But, at the end of the day, it makes your dog a lot more calmer, and if you're not a breeder or something like that, then I recommend that you definitely spay and neuter your pet, all pets.
Right. I mean, in fact, you were telling us before we came on air how, you were at the shelter, and you were actually, the dog that was going to be euthanized or put down was actually licking your face. I mean, these are, as you and I talked about, usually 70-80% of the dogs in shelters are purebred dogs. Not that they're any more important or that they feel any less pain, but, people have this weird misconception. But there's a lot of dogs that are, they're ready to go to a home, but there's just not one.
Absolutely. I mean, whether it's runaways, whether just there's a lot of good breeds mixed breeds. There's full blood breeds, like you said. But the thing about it is, we have to go and see. We have to spread the awareness so people could go and actually see it. A lot of people think that, they're only putting down, runaway dogs, rabies dogs, mean dogs, vicious dogs. No, they're euthanizing pretty much whatever dog is necessary for that space, and it's not their fault. They're not to blame. They're just doing their job. It's our fault as the people out here, the community. We have to be more responsible so they don't end up there. But definitely make that a spot. Even if you can't adopt, spread the word to your community. If you're going to get a dog, don't go to a breeder. Go rescue one of these dogs. I mean, there's a lot of great dogs. Some dogs just got off the chain. They were a dog somebody might have paid thousands for. They just got off the chain. They weren't microchipped or whatever, and they ended up in the shelter. So, there's a lot of good dogs there, and they're not just putting down mean dogs. There's a lot of good dogs. Mostly all my dogs came from either DeKalb Animal Control, Fulton County, through rescues that pulled them out for me. And I mean, they're great dogs. They all live together. These big mean pit bulls, and I got pictures of them licking my son and all that kind of stuff. So they just need a second chance.
That's right. Well, if you were just tuning in, you are listening to Second Opinion Radio, secondopinionradio.com. We have the pleasure of having our special guest in the studio, Be Good. He is the owner and founder of Be Good Dog Behavior Modification. His website is halfmanhalfpit.com. By the way, it's a great website. You've got tips on there, a tip to help people with training and that sort of thing. What are some of the most common questions you get when you're, from people who come to you that want to train their dogs? What are they usually trying to work on?
It's funny. Most people just want the basic things. I got a reputation for being able to deal with the most severe aggression and things like that, but those are more few and far between. What I mostly get is just the average person that wants to have a guest come over their house. The dog not, just molest the people that come in there, not, taking food out of the guest's hands and that kind of stuff. It's really a lot of that kind of stuff too, just to be able to go on a walk without your dog pulling you down the street, and those are the basics. You know what I mean? That, like I said, if it was a little Chihuahua pulling somebody down the street, nobody would really say anything. But when it's a big muscular pit bull doing it, they're like, oh, he's out of control or he's mean. And that's not the case in most of the time.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, you and I were talking, and Sonia had the pleasure, and I will say pleasure, of walking my dog, who was a rescue, by the way, and she's just 40 pounds, but, even a dog that size, I need to go to training because you don't just innately know how to train dogs, and you're an expert at that.
Absolutely.
So what do you suggest for people? Obviously, they can go to your website. Let me give it out again, halfmanhalfpit.com. You're wonderful, obviously. You're out in the community and speaking up against dog fighting. And you mentioned on your website that you've been aware of dog fighting. It's not anything new to you, but you do speak out against it. Yeah,
I definitely speak out against dog fighting and backyard breeding and things like that. And one thing, a lot of people when they're on the outside, they don't understand, some people's mentality and things like that. But, when you're young and you kind of grow up and something's all around you, whether it's your uncle, your cousins or stuff like that, and you see it, you don't think anything's wrong with it, and it's not to make an excuse, but a lot of times just information is what can help change, someone's whole perspective on something. And that's what I try to do. I go into communities. I talk to a lot of these guys, about getting a dog spayed and neutered. I'm a strong advocate against dog fighting. And, I hit the streets, and I go out there and I work closely with different rescues from like Mutt Madness to AAR to the Humane Society. And we get out there and we need a more hands-on approach. It's not just getting out there handing out flyers and things like that. A lot of times I just take my dogs for a walk and I attract people. And that's how a lot of times conversations get started, so we can get to the point.
Well, what's next for you? I know you're building your business. You've got some lovely guests here in the studio, by the way. A handsome son and lovely wife there. So what's next for your business? You're just trying to grow it, get your name out there?
Yeah, definitely trying to grow the business out. Definitely just trying to do the outreach. We would love to have a show or something and just show some people, as far as like a reality show or something like that, just so people can see. It's one thing for me to do what I'm doing in my community, my neighborhood and things like that, but every city needs this type of stuff, and people getting out there. And if that was possible, we might be able to change, the opinion of thousands. It's just like all the people listening to this. Even if it's volunteering on the weekends at your shelter or with a rescue. I mean, you don't have. I want you to go adopt a dog from a rescue or something like that. But if you can't, there's other things you can do to help out with rescues, whether it's volunteering, whether it's even just going and walking dogs or things like that, spreading the word to your people in your community. All of that helps because this is an overwhelming problem, and we all have to do our part to change it.
Let me give your phone number. It's 678-702-6859, halfmanhalfpit.com. Any final words, Be Good, before we switch gears here a little bit?
No, I just want to thank you for having me. Thank you for doing what you're doing. You know, every little bit helps, you know, and this is what we need. We got to reach the masses. So definitely appreciate you having me.
Well, we appreciate everything you do, your outreach and all your good work. And I think I might be visiting you with Layla